Can you hear me now? All right, let's try that. Can you hear me? Someone type if you can hear me or not. I got a couple of people saying you can't hear me. Can you hear me? Makes for a very short discussion if you can't hear me. All right, Heather, you say you can hear me. So wonderful. So I will go with the new microphone. If you allow me, since you've been watching me flip sides, I'm going to go backwards and try this one more time. All right. We can hear me. You can hear me. So we're back on track. So I'm going to restart. So we'll do a double take, good practice for me. So we're here tonight fighting the comorbidities of COVID-19. And so our point tonight is to really give you some tools to deal with cancer and how it ties into COVID-19. So let me flip my pictures here around a little bit more. And here we go. And again, here we go. So won't go too long on this. I've been in practice in the Beaverton area almost 29 years, lived in Oregon my whole life, and I'm just happy to be here to serve you all. So without any further ado, we're here about cancer. So cancer, the #2 cause of death in the world. In 2018, 9.6 million people died as a result of cancer. And so this is a big issue, not just in the United States, but literally across the world. 1 out of every 6 deaths. And you can see there's 5 key behavioral and dietary risks. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. Behavioral means that you have some control over your risk of getting cancer. It doesn't eliminate the risk of cancer, but it can decrease the likelihood of that. So what I'm saying is you have some control over that as you go through your day-to-day lives. When we look at the United States, the numbers are not any better. It's also 1 in 6, about 1 out of, well, it's the #2 leading cause of death. But the part that I thought was interesting, it's the #1 cause of death for people 30 to 69 years old. And what you're going to notice at the bottom of this slide, and on other slides too, are the references to the statistics I'm going to be giving you. So if you have any questions, go to the website that are listed there. Do the research yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Be an informed healthcare consumer. Understand that nobody's going to be more concerned about your health than you. So I implore you, please take the time, do the work, do the research, find out the answers that affect you, and then make the best choices as you work with your doctors and healthcare providers to give you the best health possible. As we look at the United States specifically, we know that in 2020, there are estimated to be 1.8 million people that are going to have cases of cancer and over 600,000 deaths. So when we look at that on a daily basis, it's over 1,600 people a day dying of cancer. If we want to make it more urgent, 1 person every minute. So by the time we're done with this actual workshop in the United States, anywhere between 25 and 35 people have passed away as a result of cancer. And so again, tonight is about giving you information, helping you have some choices. And again, I encourage you to spend some time, not just looking at this for yourself, but talking to friends and family, letting them know about this resource. They can go online and watch this. You can watch it later. In fact, sometimes it's easier to watch it later as well. The second time you can pause, write down the references. So I encourage you to do that. When we talk about COVID and cancer, though, here's the reason why I'm bringing this up. What we know is that if you have cancer, the reason why you're more susceptible to having COVID in the first place is that your immune system does not work as well. With the immune system not working as well, what ends up happening is that you're more attackable or you're more likely to get sick. So whether it's COVID-19, whether it's the seasonal flu, whether it's a cold, whatever it is, the stronger the immune system function of your body, the healthier and stronger your body can be. And so what we need to do is look at how can we make some choices with regards to that. Those of you that have cancer know that, again, just having cancer in of itself causes weakness in the immune system. The treatments for cancer also can attack the immune system, and so that also makes you more susceptible. So I encourage you, if that is you, take the precautions that are necessary. Wash your hands, cover your face, minimize the contact with people, just to make sure your body is strong and doing the things you need to do. And continue to work with your doctors to make sure you can be as strong and healthy as possible. Some of the key risk factors that we find are really simple. Age. How old are you? We tend to, as we get older, we tend to be more run down, out of shape. We don't exercise as much. We don't eat right. All the things we're gonna talk about here later. And so I encourage you, as you get older, don't let the habits that are positive start to fall aside. We all go through seasons of life. It's easy to get overwhelmed with different phases of our life, but we always need to make sure we're doing the things we can do, whether we're eating or exercising or looking at our mindset, to be overall healthy. And I encourage you always to do that, whether we're talking about heart disease, cancer, or just general health, because that's going to be a critical component. Habits. The thing that we understand is that behavior, habits, lifestyle have a big indicator as far as your risk of getting cancer, which means you have control over your likelihood of getting cancer. You'll see where it says family history. There can be a genetic component, but having a genetic predisposition to cancer is not a guarantee that you're going to get it. Again, you've got some control over that. Different studies anywhere say between 40 and 60% of cancers can be tied into lifestyle, which means you have a really good chance of having a positive influence on your body. The thing that's interesting, if we bounce back to age, is that we are unfortunately seeing a lot more cancer cases in our younger population. Young children, newborns, toddlers, early preschool and elementary school kids. And it's a lot of times just the toxic exposure that mom and dad were exposed to even before the child was conceived and then born. And so that kind of ties into our last component there, the environment. So I have a short video I want to share with you. This is from YouTube, so you can see the link down below. And so I am going to mute my microphone, and then I'm going to have the video play. So I need to do that so that we don't get the feedback. So give me just a quick second here, and I'm going to mute myself. Okay, I understand we couldn't hear the video, so we're going to continue with our audio fun and excitement. Let me rewind that, and I'll play it again. You can listen to it through my microphone. So let me turn it up louder, and I pray that we don't get feedback. So a one and a two and a...
Everyone has cancer. That's right. We all have cancer cells in our body. Cancer is natural, and it's actually normal. It's a normal process of human biology. Some cells, for various reasons, it could be injury or they could be deprived of essential nutrients, mutate to survive and become cancerous. Now, the average person could have thousands of cancerous cells circulating through their bloodstream every day. And the reason they don't develop cancerous tumors is their immune system. So your immune system is key to staying cancer free, right? Even though you have cancer cells in your body, your T cells are immune cells that are designed to identify and eliminate, to kill cancer cells before they can set up camp and take over and kill you. So why do some people get cancerous tumors and others don't? Well, the basic explanation is this: cancer needs the right environment in order to thrive. And an internal environment that is hospitable to cancer growth is one that is inflammatory and has decreased immune function. So, increased inflammation and decreased immune function over time changes your internal terrain. And there's a lot of things that we do that contribute to this unhealthy internal terrain. So, an unhealthy junk food, processed food diet, a diet that's really high in meat and dairy products, a lot of toxic chemicals from our environment, stress that raises stress hormones, which promote inflammation and decrease immune function, and being overweight promotes inflammation and decreases immune function. So, those are all contributing factors that lead to an environment where cancer can thrive. So, the holistic approach to health and healing and prevention is one that addresses the whole body. And the goal of holistic health is to heal the whole body, to make it a place where cancer cannot thrive.
So there you have it. Just do that. We'll be good to go. Let me bounce back here. Skip over our video.
Yep.
All right. So let's get to the good news. How do we work to prevent this? So that's what we're going to talk about. So number one thing is we need to stop smoking. Again, this is just the biggest thing. As many as 22% of all cancers can be tied into smoking. And so there's lots of different people always talking about not smoking, and we tend to see that it's always in the news about trying to get more people to stop smoking, and now we have the vaping thing, which in of itself could cause other issues. And so really looking at how to get rid of smoking is going to be a key thing. When we look at just cancer, when you stop smoking, and we look at what can end up happening over time, it can lower the risk of 12 different types of cancers. Now, it's over time, so if you stop smoking, you don't automatically have a clean system. It's going to take a good 5 to 10 years at first to start to see the first drop off on some of the different types of cancers. And you can see the list there. But after about 20 years of stopping smoking, you're almost back to normal as far as your cancer risks against an average non-smoker. Now, the risk of cervical cancer drops about half at that point. But again, anything that you can do to minimize the lifestyle, behavior, environmental risk factors for cancer really gives you a much better chance of either not having it, or if you have it or get it, that you can bounce back faster. The second thing that we want to talk about then is avoid excessive sun exposure. Now, notice I didn't say avoid sun. Sun is not bad. The sun has two primary types of rays, UVA and UVB. And it's the UVA light that tends to cause the most damage to the skin. It's the UVB light that tends to help the body make the vitamin D that we need to minimize our risk of cancer. We'll talk about that here shortly. So what we have to understand is it's prolonged exposure to the body. If you get more than just pink when you're out in the sun, you're starting to get too much sun. So as we in Oregon, we're moving away from the sun season. Once we get back into the spring and early summer, it's one of those slowly build up your base. More than just a little bit of pinkening, though, means that your body's got too much exposure. If you burn, now you're going beyond the benefits of sun, and you're actually now causing damage to the skin, which now sets you up for potential skin cancer. One of the things that a lot of people do is that they will use sunscreens, which is helpful to minimize the risk of the harmful radiation that you can get from the sunshine, the UVA, or even excess exposure to UVB rays. The problem is that many of the sunscreens can be then toxic, which means then you're putting on your skin toxic chemicals. Those get absorbed into the body, and now you've got an environment that you've changed that makes it more, as the other author put, more hospitable to cancer. So our job in this discussion is how can we make it less hospitable to cancer, or let's put it another way, more hospitable to health. So I mentioned vitamin D a moment ago, which means I should go the other direction. Here we go. All right, vitamin D. What we're noting is that vitamin D exposure, vitamin D from sun exposure is the best way to see that in the body. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not get enough vitamin D from the sun. That requires that you're out in the sun between about 10 and 2. You've got a good 50% of your skin exposed. Unfortunately, even in the summer, most people spend most of their time inside. And so even more so, obviously, with COVID. And so sometimes we need to supplement with vitamin D. Obviously in Oregon, we're far north of the equator. And so we really don't get enough vitamin D from the sunshine in most cases. And so supplementing really isn't an option. It's really more of a necessity. Making sure you take a good quality vitamin D is very important. And even one that has vitamin K added to it to help with absorption. We also find too that if you take your vitamin D along with a meal and you're taking probiotics at that meal, that also helps with the absorption and the absorbability of the vitamin D as well. And so we just think that this is one of the core 6 supplements that we really recommend for people to take. The most important thing though is to know what your number is. So what do I mean by number? Well, lab work. We don't like to test or guess in our office. We like to test. And so I encourage all of our patients, when you're getting your annual blood work with your doctor, medical doctor, naturopath, whoever, make sure that they add the vitamin D test, the D3 test, because it can tell us a lot of information about your potential risk for cancer. Now, what I find though is a lot of the allopathic doctors look at a number about 20 to maybe 30 as far as a normal range for vitamin D. And as you can see on the screen here, that means your risk of rickets, bone disease, is pretty low. And so I don't know about you, but I don't really hear about rickets these days. But I do have people that come in the office that I know that their blood levels are below 20. So that's a crisis issue, especially if a person's older, and we're starting to worry about now things like osteoporosis as well. That's why they add vitamin D to milk for absorption and absorbability. I like other forms of calcium supplementation like vegetables. And so those are one of the things that we always talk about here in the office. But just look at the numbers here. If you get a value that's between 40 and 60, you can see that there are many different types of cancers and other health conditions that the risk decreases significantly with higher levels of vitamin D. So for me, my recommendation is that 60 to 80 is probably that ideal spot for most people, because that minimizes a lot of risk. Now, if you've had cancer, or as you can see, things like heart disease, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, I like to see those numbers a little bit higher, anywhere between 80 to 100. Beyond that, you're really getting, my understanding from the research is really no therapeutic value. So you don't need to get it higher and higher and higher. I'm not aware of any specific toxicities for high levels of vitamin D3 in the blood. Super high levels of vitamin D then can start having some issues with regards to calcium absorption and utilization. So we don't want to go down that path either. So I'd say 100 is a max, 60 to 80 is a kind of a good sweet spot for you. And again, the best way to know is to test. I think eating a healthy diet makes sense. One of the things I always talk about, it's not junk or food, it's just food. People say, well, I don't have too much junk food. And I said, well, it's either junk or it's food. And so you really need to look at what you're putting in your body. And let me take a side step here. I want you to understand that I'm covering a lot of information tonight, and it can be overwhelming for you. Please don't let that happen. Watch the workshop, pick 1 or 2, maybe 3 things that you can implement over the course of the next month or 2, and be proud of yourself for those baby steps. And then as you get more comfortable with that, add another step. and then add another step. And when you look over the course of anywhere from 3 to 6 months, you'll look back and go, wow, I've made a lot of big changes, but you did it small incremental steps at a time. We have to understand that Rome wasn't built in a day, right? So we're not going to completely turn our health around in a day. So if we have lots of these issues that we're going to be talking about tonight, it's okay to give yourself permission to give yourself time. One of the things that we find with nutrition specifically is that people get used to their comfort foods. And so they would much rather eat the brownie and the donut and then skip, the workouts or, the nutritional changes. So let's agree to make just some small steps today. Give yourself permission to stumble once in a while, but then encourage yourself and commit to yourself, your own health, and then the people around you, that you'll get back up again and start up. The best way to be successful in this really is to get a partner involved and to work with someone, accountability, if you will, and just, 2 or 3 other people, at least one other person, but 1 to 2 people, ideally, but hold each other accountable, support each other, and just go with it that way. When we look at some of the research, here's out of the Nutrition Journal, what they're saying is that 30 to 40% of cancers can be affected by lifestyle and dietary alone, just by making these simple changes in how you eat. So if you know that you have a family history or predisposition to cancer, I strongly encourage you to take a step backwards. And number 1, look at what you're eating. What are you putting in your body? Is it food? Is it the right food? Is it the right amount of food? Those are important questions to ask. If you're a parent caring for a child, same thing holds true. What are they eating? Is it the right amount of foods? I understand as we work with our middle schoolers and high schoolers and even young adults that sometimes we don't have control over everything they eat, and that's okay. They're learning to be adult and making choices, but do the best you can to support them and guide them along the journey. And as you raise a child, as they get older, they'll have a chance to make the choices, and hopefully the positive choices based on what you've taught them. What's interesting is you continue down below, there'd be as much as a 60 to 70% decrease in things like breast, colorectal, prostate, and lung cancer just by nutritional changes. Guess what's one of some of the biggest causes of cancer, types of cancer, right there. There's over 200 different forms of cancer, but the bottom line is that they're all abnormal growths in the body affecting different systems and organs. And so you can see now that you have some direct control over that. So the question is, all right, so what do we eat? What are some of the foods we need to look at? So this is from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And again, you can see the website listed below. And what they basically say is simply eat fruits and vegetables. Now, I'm going to add to that, the more organic that you can eat, the better. I would encourage you to go to the Environmental Working Group website and look at what's called the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Those are the 12 types of produce, fruits and vegetables, the Dirty Dozen, that are the most toxically raised. So pesticides, herbicides, all those things. Or the Clean 15, those are the types of produce that tend to have the least amount of chemicals. So Dirty Dozen, you typically find apples and berries at the top of the list. Thin skin, grow in a buggy environment, and so they're going to spray them a lot. Whereas you see things like avocado and bananas, one, thick skin, don't tend to have a lot of bugs in the environment that get into the fruits. And so some things to consider. So it's the Environmental Working Group. You can find their website at ewg.org, and lots of great resources. In fact, every spring they have a rating, if you will, of the toxicity of the top 1,000 plus different types of sunscreens. So kind of segueing back to where we were before, another great resource as far as helping make good choices if you are going to use sunscreen. Processed food is a big deal. If you look at the label on the can, the jar, or the bottle, and you can't pronounce the things that are in it, or it has more than 3 or 4 or 5 ingredients, you might want to consider looking for an alternative, because those are chemicals. Chemicals alter how the body functions and works, might make it taste better, but it's also having a chemical reaction to the body. That can be a bad thing. It says focus on plant proteins. It does not say don't eat meat. It says you can get a lot of good proteins from your vegetables, legumes, etc. I think that the meats are fine. I think the quality of the meat is probably the biggest issue. And so we're back to the environmental working group. What they're going to say is, if you're looking at your budget and you are a meaty, the first place that's really best to start is looking at the quality of your proteins. Getting grass-fed and grass-finished beef, getting free-range organic poultry, getting wild-caught salmon out of the North Pacific, Alaska area are really your best sources. And the reason why I say start with your proteins is because if you do get exposed to chemicals, it's going to take a lot more chemistry on the vegetables to be sprayed to keep them. Let me strike that. When you raise 1 pound of hamburger, as an example, it takes 16 pounds of chemicals to create that. Another reason why, to minimize the amount of conventional beef, because it's hard on the environment. Whereas if you look at the amount of chemicals that you're going to get for your average conventional produce, it's not that much. So you're going to get a lot more toxicity in conventionally raised meat than you would for conventionally raised produce. And so start with the meat, move on to the produce as budget and time allows. And then limit alcohol. And I think that's an obvious thing for a lot of people too, for various reasons. Next thing I want to go over is exercise. Now, it doesn't say exercise every day. It doesn't say exercise so you can't breathe all the time. It says exercise most days of the week. So what I would encourage you to do is to find a program that you enjoy doing, that you can commit to doing anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week. And anywhere from a short, high-intensity interval workout for 10 to 15 minutes to, if you like to walk, go on power walks where you modify the rate or the speed in which you're exercising to really have an influence on working on your heart rate. The biggest thing is you got to find something that you're willing to do. If you don't like to walk or you don't like to run, going to the store and buying some running shoes and a running outfit is going to fall flat on its face within about 1 to 2 weeks because you don't like it. So if you like to swim, swim. If you like to do exercises in your basement, find different ways to modify it to work on your exercise and your heart rate. If you like to walk and run, do that. And again, just like I mentioned before, get accountability or support partners to encourage you along that way. Maybe meet a couple friends at the mall and walk around inside as we start getting more rain. Do that. Or on beautiful sunny days like we have today, go for a walk in the neighborhood. Say hi to your neighbors. Keep your distance as required, but get out, move, enjoy the sunshine as it is, or enjoy the fresh air as you can. But again, you got to find something that you enjoy doing, and that will help you stay into it. Now, there are different recommendations as far as how much exercise. So this is right off the cancer.org website. And you can see that for adults, anywhere from 150 to 300 minutes of moderate exercise. So again, walks most days of the week, that would be easier to do. If you're doing more vigorous exercise, 75 minutes to 150, a little over 2 hours can be the thing there. It's the degree of activity. So if you look the definition there, so for moderate, brisk walk would be a moderate activity. Vigorous exercise, more full body movements, more things that are going to make you tired faster. I really like to have people do interval training, high intensity interval training, burst training, lots of different names for that. And honestly, on the YouTube channels, there are a whole bunch of different exercise videos. I encourage you, if you haven't exercised in a while, number one, talk with your doctor, make sure that any restrictions or limitations are addressed before you begin. And then number two, take it slow. If you have the opportunity to work with a trainer at a gym, I would encourage you to do that. Don't just join a gym and start wandering around and doing stuff. You can hurt yourself. So if you join a gym, I support that. Work with a trainer for a few visits to get familiar with the machines and how the equipment works. Also make sure you're using good form and technique. And then again, If you exercise at the gym with a partner, then you guys can spot for each other and make sure you're not hurting yourselves with the activities that you're doing. Maintain a healthy weight is a key component here as well. Notice it doesn't say ideal weight. It doesn't say find what your BMI is and make sure that you dial that in 100%. In fact, research has shown that for people that are fit, but even overweight, they have a lower mortality rate than people that are the ideal weight, but not fit. So what I'm suggesting is let's look at trying to find a healthy weight for us. BMI is not a great number, but it gives us a place to begin with, and then move that direction. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should lose 10 pounds a week and just stop eating and exercise 19 hours a day, but let's again make some small choices. Maybe before we eat our lunch, we have an extra piece of fruit or a vegetable. Maybe we start walking a little bit more, but we be more aware of what's going on. But here's what we're finding now in the United States. Obesity and being overweight is growing rampantly. This is looking at numbers from just last year, and we're showing that in Oregon, 25 to 30% of the population are admitting to being obese. Not overweight, obese. So you add to that number, it's even higher. And in fact, I think nationally, the overweight numbers are approaching 70% of the US population are overweight, and as much as 30 to 35% of the US population. Now you can see there's some numbers that are higher, there are some states, but on average. And so again, these are based on BMI numbers. And again, I don't want to get caught on the, well, I'm at 25, I should be a 24, or I'm at 27, I want to be an 18. These are guidelines. Use that as a place to begin, but then work with a healthcare provider to find out what's the ideal rate for you. When we look at just obesity as a whole, though, they're associated with 13 different types of cancers, and that's 40% of all cancers that are existing. So again, we've just seen that smoking and nutrition have a big influence on overall cancers. Now we're seeing that being overweight does. So again, you can see how much control you have as an individual with your day-to-day behaviors, habits, and lifestyle as far as your risk of developing cancer or having prolonged bouts if you do have cancer. And so I just really want to encourage you, start taking some baby steps. We talked last month when we were discussing heart disease, similar concepts there as well. So you can see that this changing how you eat or looking how you exercise is beneficial across multiple different chronic health issues. So number one, if you want to go back and watch that video, it's on our Facebook page, it's on our YouTube channel. But the reason why we're having these discussions in the first place is that we're finding that the population that's dying in the United States right now of COVID-19 have 2.6 2.6 other chronic health conditions in addition to having COVID. So if we can lower your risk of having any of these other conditions, get your body stronger, can boost your immune system, make you more resistant to COVID, but also just help you be healthier in the first place, which I think is a cool thing. So here are the different cancers that they're talking about on the cancer.org website, and you can read those, but these are really the big ones. These are the ones we hear about most often. These are the ones that we have our friends dying of, our family. And so really this is, I've done workshops a lot of times, and I'll ask people to stand up, and then I'll ask people to sit down if they have nobody that they've known in their family or friends that have died of cancer. And virtually everyone still stays standing. And so it's a tragic thing. It's affected my family. And so anything that we can do here to support you and help you have that risk minimized, we're here for you. One of the things that's really important when we talk about health in general is making sure that you have an optimum functioning nervous system. If you remember the gentleman from the video talking about, it's the immune system that has a strong influence on how the body gets cancer. And so we have to understand that the immune system is controlled by the nervous system. So if you have a nervous system that's not functioning properly, that can set you up and put you at a bigger risk for other chronic health issues. And so what we know too is that there's research that shows, they did a number of studies, where they did a study where they looked at a number of individuals and they compared their overall health markers against the average chiropractic patient and the average individual on the street. And what they found is that there was a 200% greater immune competence, so a better immune function for the patients under chiropractic care. And if you look at the patients who had chronic health issues like cancer or other serious diseases, 400% greater. So what I want you to understand is that your brain, as it communicates through the spinal cord and to the nerves to the body, has a strong influence on the function of every single organ, cell, and tissue in the body. And so if that communication between the brain and the body is working better, you have a much greater chance of being healthier, living a long, healthy, happier life, minimizing your risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, whatever. It's not a guarantee, understand that. You have a lot of control over that, but this is what we work with in our office, is this power in the body. And so if you are not a patient in a chiropractic office, I encourage you, please follow up with a chiropractic office. Honestly, if you're in my area, in the Beaverton, Portsmouth metropolitan area, call our office, talk to the staff, see what options we have for you. I don't charge for a consultation for you just to sit down, review your paperwork, see how we can help you. Make sure it's the right time and a good fit. If it's not, no problem, no cost. But if we do find that this is a good time, I'm going to sit down with you and tell you what the cost is of what we're going to do. We're going to do a formal examination. Maybe even need to take x-rays. We do very specific analysis of the spine. So we're going to look at the structure of the spine. We're going to look at the function of the spine. And then we're going to sit down as a team and say, okay, here's what we found. Here's the recommendations. And if you have insurance, we'll go over whatever limitations that they have and we'll address your questions. But our ultimate goal is helping you achieve the goals you want for your health. And so we're going to work with you on that and give you some tools. So, been a crazy night, right? Couple different issues with regards to the audio. Got to watch me move my mouth for a while, and then you got to hear me, and then you watched the video. Then you got to listen to the video after I played it the second time. So let's just stop for a second. Let's just take a breath. Where do we go from here? Well, again, 1, 2, maybe 3 things. Add to your routine, add to your lifestyle. Again, the brain and the nervous system control functions in the body. You can eat the best foods in the body, but if your body can't assimilate those foods, it's not so good. You can exercise every day, but if your spine's out of balance, you're going to create abnormal muscles balance. So I'd encourage you, if you're not into chiropractic care, start with that. If you're not in our area, I'd encourage you to find a chiropractor in your area that does spinal correction work. If you need help finding someone, if you're in the middle of Oklahoma or Texas or back east someplace, you can't find someone, give us a call. I'll do what I can to find one of my colleagues, one of my buddies. I know people all over the country. I've been doing this long enough. I've got pockets of friends around the world, mostly in the US, but I can help you and your family out for that. The next step then, what are you eating? 80% of weight management is what you eat. 20% is from how you move. And so those are the next 2 places to start. Maybe if you know that nutrition is the area you start, don't try to do all of it. Maybe we make a couple changes. Maybe we substitute a lot of heavy sugary foods for maybe we take some of those away and we add an extra piece of fruit. Or maybe we add some vegetables. Or maybe we get a vegetable powder. At least we're getting some of the greens that we need. Whatever that is for you. If you need guidance, if you need help for that, we're here for you. We do this all the time. We really feel that lifestyle is a critical component to health. Again, I could make corrections to your spine and nervous system every day, but if all of your food comes from a drive-through window, that's not going to be good either. So we have to have workshops like this and discussions at the office to give you tools to be able to make good, healthy choices. So the third part of our 3-part series is coming up next month. It's the Thursday before Thanksgiving, and we're going to talk about obesity and diabetes. As we talked about last month with heart disease and this month with cancer, being overweight, obesity are really big issues with regards to chronic health. We're going to tie it into diabetes with this workshop. And again, I hope to empower you to make some changes in your day-to-day activities that will prove to be beneficial, not just in the short term, but also in the long term for you and your family. So with that, I thank you for your patience and putting up with all the audio stuff. We will regroup next month, and hopefully it will all be working better. But with that, I wish you a great evening.